Trent Morrison smiled, a practiced, polished thing that did not reach his eyes. "Mr. Vance," he said, his voice smooth as worn marble. "As I have explained 3 times now, the box is empty." He gestured vaguely toward the massive, gleaming vault door behind him. "Our records indicate the account associated with Safety Deposit Box 734 was closed due to non-payment 2 years ago." He leaned forward, placing his manicured hands on the mahogany desk. "It's a simple clerical error we are clearing from the books, an artifact of our acquisition of the Old County Trust." Arthur Vance, 82 years old, sat perfectly still in the plush leather chair. It was a chair designed to make visitors feel small. It did not work on Arthur. He wore a flannel shirt, faded but clean, and his hands, resting on his knees, were gnarled with a lifetime of work. They were steady hands. He looked at the young bank manager, a man less than half his age, who wore a suit that cost more than Arthur's first car. Arthur's expression did not change. He said 2 words. "Open the box." Trent's smile tightened at the edges. "There is nothing to open." The box was sealed. Its contents, of which there were none, were certified by 2 employees, and the account was terminated. Its procedure. Arthur blinked slowly. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Tell him no," Arthur said, turning his head slightly to the man beside him, his lawyer, Samuel Croft. Samuel, a man nearly Arthur's age, nodded. "My client does not accept your procedural explanation," Samuel stated calmly. "He has paid the fee for that box every year, without fail, for 62 years. Trent Morrison laughed. It was a short, sharp, condescending sound. He was about to learn the difference between price and value. He was about to learn that some vaults are not made of steel, but of memory and promise. And he was about to learn what was truly inside Safety Deposit Box 734. It was not empty, not by a long shot. The story of that box did not begin in the sterile, air-conditioned office of the newly branded Sterling National Bank. It began in 1961. It began with dust, hope, and a father's foresight. Arthur was 20 years old then, strong and lean, standing beside his father, Thomas Vance, on a windy overlook. Below them stretched 80 acres of dry, scrub-covered land. It was land the Vance family had owned for a century. It was considered the worst 80 acres in the county, good for little more than grazing a few tough cattle and watching the sunset. Thomas Vance, however, saw something else. He was a geologist, a man who read stories in stone and saw futures buried deep in the earth. He held a document in his hand, a deed he had just filed at the county courthouse. "They think I'm a fool," Thomas said, his voice carried on the wind. "They were happy to separate these rights from the surface deed. Sold them for a song." He handed the paper to Arthur. It was a deed for the mineral rights to their 80 acres, all of them, from the topsoil to the center of the earth. "The surface isn't the prize, son," Thomas explained, tapping a dusty boot on the hard ground. "Down deep, 2 miles down. There's a layer of shale here, rich with kerogen." Arthur looked at his father, confused. "There's oil here?" Thomas shook his head. "Not exactly. It's oil shale, trapped. The technology to get it out, to cook it out of the rock profitably. It doesn't exist yet. It might not exist in my lifetime. It might not even exist in yours." He looked his son square in the eye. "But one day, it will. And when that day comes, the man who holds this paper will hold the key." The next day, they drove into town to the County Trust Bank. It was a sturdy old building with granite pillars and a teller cage made of real brass. Thomas rented the smallest safety deposit box they had, Box 734. He paid the $5 annual fee in cash. Inside the small private room, he placed the folded mineral rights deed into the slim metal container. He held the key in his palm, a small, intricate brass key. He gave it to Arthur. "This is your job now," he said, his voice serious. "Some things are worth waiting for. This is one of them. Pay the fee. Every year. Never miss it. Don't tell anyone what's in here. Let them forget. This land will sleep for a long time, but one day it will wake up. And you need to be ready." That was the promise. A promise Arthur Vance kept for 62 years. 62 years. For 62 years, the world changed around that small metal box. The County Trust Bank was bought by a regional bank, then by a national conglomerate. The brass teller cages were replaced with open counters and plexiglass. The old clanking adding machines gave way to silent, glowing computer terminals. Tellers came and went. Managers were promoted and transferred. Presidents and CEOs he'd never meet changed the letterhead and the logo. But every January, like clockwork, Arthur Vance would walk through the doors. He would walk to the counter, and a new, young face would look up. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to pay the fee for my safety deposit box," he'd say. "Account number?" "I don't have one. It's box 734. There would be a moment of confusion, a call to a senior employee, a search through an old ledger or a forgotten corner of the computer system. Eventually, the fee would be found. $5 became 10. 10 became 25. For the last decade, it had been $50 a year. Arthur always paid in cash. He would hand over the crisp bills and wait. And every year he would receive a small printed receipt. He never looked in the box. He didn't need to. He knew what was inside. He would take the receipt, fold it carefully, and place it in his wallet. When he got home, he would put it in an old shoebox in his closet. The shoebox was filled with 61 other receipts, a perfect, unbroken chain of paper, a paper trail of a promise kept. His father passed away. His wife passed away. His own children grew up and moved away, having children of their own. Arthur remained. He mowed the grass on those 80 acres. He fixed the fences. He paid the property taxes. And every January he paid the fee for box 734. He never bragged, never called the bank to confirm the contents, never needed to. His father had given him a job, and he was doing it. The world had forgotten about the Vance mineral rights, just as his father predicted, but the world had not forgotten about the land itself. The catalyst came not as a tremor from the earth, but as a sleek, glossy brochure. A new development project, Canyon Creek Estates, was announced. Hundreds of luxury homes, a golf course, a shopping center. It was the biggest thing to ever happen in the county, and the project's success hinged on one thing: a new access road and utility corridor connecting it to the main highway. The ideal path for that corridor ran directly through 80 acres of useless scrubland. Arthur Vance's 80 acres. Sterling National Bank, as it happened, was the primary financier of the Canyon Creek project. Their legal team did a title search. The surface rights were clean, owned outright by one Arthur Vance. They saw the old severed mineral rights deed from 1961, but their experts dismissed it. The rights were likely considered abandoned under state law after 50 years of inactivity. No mining, no drilling, no exploration. It was a loose end, nothing more. To be safe, the bank's project manager wanted every potential liability cleaned up before they broke ground. That task fell to Trent Morrison. Trent, eager to impress his superiors, began purging old low-value accounts from the books of the former county trust. He came across Safety Deposit Box 734. He saw the minuscule $50 annual fee. He saw the name of an elderly man. He saw a glitch in the new computer system, a system that didn't always play well with decades-old paper accounts. It flagged the most recent payment, the one Arthur had made in cash 11 months prior, as missing. For Trent, this was perfect. A pretext. He declared the account delinquent. He followed the bank's modern procedure for dormant accounts, which was designed for efficiency, not for 62-year-old promises. He had 2 junior employees sign an affidavit stating the box was drilled, opened, and found to be empty. They never actually drilled it. They never opened it. Why would they? It was just paperwork to close a nuisance account for a forgetful old man. Trent mailed a certified letter to Arthur Vance. It informed him that Box 734 had been closed, its contents disposed of, and the matter was finished. He filed the paperwork and moved on, proud of his efficiency. He had no idea he had just lit the fuse on a $50 million bomb. Arthur received the letter on a Tuesday. He read it once, then he read it again. He felt no anger, no panic. He felt a strange sense of calm, the kind of calm that comes when a moment you have been preparing for your entire life finally arrives. He walked to his closet and took down the old shoebox. He picked up the telephone. His first call was to his granddaughter, Clara. She was worried, telling him it was probably just a mistake, that maybe he should just let it go. "It's not a mistake," Arthur said, his voice calm and steady, "and we're not letting it go. It's time." His second call was to Samuel Croft. "Samuel," he said, "they finally did it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Bring the shoebox, Arthur," Samuel said. "Bring the shoebox." The initial meeting was the one in Trent Morrison's office, the one where Trent laughed. After being informed by Samuel that they were not accepting the bank's story, Trent's demeanor shifted from condescending pity to outright aggression. He offered Arthur $100 for the inconvenience. Samuel Croft simply shook his head. "We'll see you in court," Trent sneered as they left. He was right about that. The bank's high-priced lawyers sent a formal notice. They cited state laws on dormant and abandoned property. They threatened to countersue for interfering with the Canyon Creek project. Samuel responded with a single simple petition to the court, a petition to compel Sterling National Bank to produce and open safety deposit box 734 in the presence of his client and a court officer. The hearing was set for a month later. It took place not in a grand courtroom, but in a small wood-paneled hearing room. A gray-haired judge sat at a large desk. Present were Arthur, Samuel, and Clara. Across the table sat Trent Morrison and two of the bank's lawyers in sharp, dark suits. The lead lawyer for the bank spoke first. He spoke of efficiency, of modern banking practices, of the necessity of clearing unmanaged, low-value accounts. He presented the affidavit, signed by two employees, swearing the box was empty. "Your Honor," the lawyer concluded with a confident air, "this is a waste of the court's time. The box is gone. The account is closed. This is a frivolous claim based on the sentimental feelings of an elderly man." The judge looked over at Samuel Croft. "Mr. Croft." Samuel stood up. He did not have a fancy leather briefcase. He placed an old worn shoebox on the table. "Your Honor," he began, his voice quiet but clear, "my client, Arthur Vance, is not here because of sentiment. He is here because of a contract initiated with County Trust Bank in 1961, and a contract that has been honored by my client every year since." He opened the box. He took out a small stack of papers, held together by a brittle rubber band. "This," he said, placing the original 1961 lease agreement for Box 734 on the judge's desk, "is the contract." Then he gestured to the shoebox. "And this," he said, "is the proof of performance." He began to lay them out, one by one. A receipt from 1962, one from 1963, 1975, 1988, 2001, 2022. A perfect, unbroken chain. 62 receipts. "The bank claims my client failed to pay last year's fee," Samuel said calmly. "Here is the receipt for that payment, dated January 14th, paid in cash, and initialed by one of their own tellers." He placed the final crisp receipt on top of the pile. Silence. The bank's lawyers stared at the mountain of paper. Trent Morrison's face had lost its confident smirk. The judge picked up the most recent receipt, then looked at the bank's lawyer. "You claim the account was delinquent," the lawyer stammered. Our electronic records indicated." "I am not interested in your electronic records," the judge said sharply. "I am interested in this piece of paper. Do you dispute its authenticity?" Trent leaned over and whispered frantically to his lawyer. The lawyer cleared his throat. "No, Your Honor, but that doesn't change the fact that the box was certified as empty. It's a procedural issue, perhaps a mistake, but the contents, if any, are long gone. It's probably just old photographs or expired insurance policies." He tried a dismissive wave of his hand. Trent Morrison smirked again, regaining a sliver of his composure. The judge was not impressed. He looked at the signed affidavit from the bank. Then he looked at Trent. "So your employees signed a legal document swearing they drilled, opened, and inspected a box, which, according to your own lawyer, was perhaps a mistake." Trent's face went from pale to ghostly white. The judge made his ruling. "This court orders Sterling National Bank to grant access to its vault. The county sheriff will accompany the parties. He will personally inspect box 734. If it is there, he will have it drilled open. This hearing is adjourned to the bank." The walk to the bank was the longest walk of Trent Morrison's life. The group reassembled in the cold, quiet vault. The sheriff, a large, no-nonsense man, held the court order. "Box 734, he said to Trent. Trent, his hands visibly shaking, led them to a low section of the wall, and there it was. A small brass door with the number 734 engraved on it. It was not sealed. It was not empty. It was simply locked. The sheriff looked at Trent, then at the affidavit in his hand, then back at Trent. He said nothing, but his expression spoke volumes. A locksmith was called. With a high-pitched whine, he drilled through the old lock. He pulled the small metal container from the wall and placed it on a felt-covered table. The sheriff opened the lid. For a moment, everyone stared. Inside lay a single yellowed document, folded into quarters. The sheriff, wearing white gloves, carefully lifted it out. He unfolded it. He read the title at the top aloud, his deep voice echoing in the silent vault. Deed of Absolute Mineral Rights, Vance Property, filed October 17th, 1961. Trent Morrison made a small, choking sound. The color drained completely from his face. He was no longer laughing. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The revelation of the mineral rights deed sent shockwaves through the Canyon Creek project. Geological surveyors hired by Samuel Croft confirmed what Thomas Vance had known in 1961. The shale formation under those 80 acres was one of the richest in the state. With modern extraction technology, its estimated value was well over $50 million. The development was dead. The access road could not be built. The bank's 9-figure investment was in jeopardy. Sterling National Bank was hit with a massive lawsuit for breach of contract, fraud, and perjury. They settled quickly for a sum that was never made public, but was rumored to have 8 figures. Trent Morrison was fired, his promising career destroyed by a shoebox full of $50 receipts. Arthur Vance was suddenly a very wealthy man, but he did not sell the rights. He did what his father would have done. He leased them to an energy company, ensuring a steady, reliable income for his family, for his granddaughter, and for generations to come. He had fulfilled his promise. One evening, a week after everything was settled, Arthur sat in his study. He took the old mineral rights deed and placed it in a new fireproof safe in his home. Then he took out the old shoebox. He looked at the pile of receipts, a 62-year history of quiet diligence. He took a black marker and, in a firm, steady hand, wrote 2 words on the lid of the box: paid in full. Patience, his father had taught him, was its own form of power. A promise kept is a legacy, and some treasures are not measured in gold or dollars, but in years. 62 years, to be exact.